RPG a Day 2017, day 27. Let's see what we have here. What are your essential tools for good gaming? Essential is an interesting kind of approach, and when you think about essentials, you know, in life, what are your actual essentials? Food, shelter, love. I would think that just about everything beyond that would be completely, dependent on the person, and even those could be argued are dependent on who you ask. In terms of gaming, and especially, of course, this question asks your essentials for a good gaming, not just for gaming and not just all around, but for you personally. I was thinking about the idea of essentials in gaming, and one might think surely a role-playing book would be an essential part of gaming. Surely that would be something that's essential. How about character sheet, pencil? Would those be really essential in order to get a role-playing game, up and running? And what about dice? Dice are surely a very, centric and kind of concrete uh, part of role playing, and surely those would be considered essentials for gaming. But in the end, really, if you think about what are essentials for role playing, they're all right there. They're between your ears. They're the kind of aspects that make this a social and creative hobby. It's not just a gaming hobby, and it's not just uh, well, you could say that even board games and miniature games and stuff like that, even those, of course, are social games. Of course, there's the social element whenever there's other people present around the table. But let's say, unless you're completely devoid of any sort of personal interaction, I'd say that when it comes to role playing essentials, all you really need is kind of willingness to just kind of go with it, just to kind of go with it, and not feel in any way that, oh, there's a certain way of playing, or you need these tools, these literal tools, these physical tools of books and pencils and papers and dice, when all the actual tools are, social tools, mental tools. And even if you can consider players, fellow players, tools for a good game, those are the actual essentials. If you were locked in a prison cell with somebody, and both of you would want to play role-playing games, but you don't have books, pencils, papers, dice, anything, you can still pull it off just as well. I think, if you ask me, the approach of essentials being those tools, those literal physical tools, they're there just to help out. They're there just to bring further kind of elements of chance, juices, and inspirations, and ideas, and kind of consistency to a lot of things, and that sort of stuff. But they're not essential. I think one of the most important things, and what I would consider essential when it comes to role playing in terms of all these mental tools, is something that I found very essential in my theater hobby as well, and that was the willingness to fail, and the willingness to look silly, the willingness to be ridiculous, the willingness to play the game, the willingness to not be too cool for school, willingness to be kind of, to throw yourself out there and not feel like, oh, what are other people thinking, kind of thing. I think in role playing as well as in theater, especially when you talk about actual role playing, actual, like, doing character dialogue, describing the things they do and all that, there's a very strong element of people not daring to do that because of social pressures and fear of being looked upon as ridiculous or silly or something like that. You know, people have that kind of social anxiety with that, no matter, you know, if it's a mild social anxiety or big one at that. It's still this kind of peer pressure where you don't want to stick out in a group, you know, even if it's with your friends. If no one is role playing around the table, it's hard to be that one guy or girl who kind of differs from the flock in how they interact with one another and how they play, and how they put themselves out there to be kind of vulnerable for people to kind of roll their eyes and look upon them as somebody who takes themselves way too seriously and silly, and you know, or that sort of stuff. And shaking that off, I think, is part of the essentials. Good role play is always extremely nice, and it's something that I strive for and something that I look for in players, but it's not really essential. What is essential is the willingness to throw yourself onto the limelight and take a chance. Take a chance in this kind of social strata, this social kind of circle that we have, this dynamic that we have around the table, you know, especially if you're in a new group, you find yourself a new group based on some gaming store, you know, note somewhere, or online forum or something like that. You find yourself a group and you don't dare to do the stuff that you like in gaming, and the stuff that makes you like gaming. You know, we don't want to stick out that way. I think the most essential thing in all of role playing, all its elements, all the die rolls, all the rules, all the information, all the consistencies, all the kind of frameworks, all the storytelling, all the role playing, all of that. What is actually the most essential thing is showing up, being courteous to your fellow players, being kind and considerate to your fellow gamers, and just throwing yourself out there. That's the most essential thing. If you dare to throw yourself out there and suspend this notion of anxiety and fear of other people's judgment of your, you know, how you have fun and stuff. That's pretty much the biggest barrier. A lot of people collect books and read books and they fantasize. They have social fantasies of role playing, but when it comes to you know, here's a group, you don't know anyone in the group, but if you want to play, you gotta throw yourself in there and take a chance, you know, with a completely new set of people. What if you don't like every one of them? What if they don't like you? What if you do something and they think this and that and the other thing? To be able to let go of that and trust that if you go there and be true to yourself and do what you like in this hobby, people will respond positively to that, and also respond in kind. Usually when somebody dares to role play, you know, all out, and you know, kind of do the voices for the characters, or be imaginative and step outside the box of you know, what you should do in a situation, be creative, and dare to like open your mouth whenever you might think that oh, I have a cool idea, but I don't know if I should open my mouth. You know, who am I in this new group? You know, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. You know, suspend all that crap. Just as long as you have like good social, you know, courtesy and consideration to the people around you. That's pretty much the most essential thing for me. When you talk about personal essential tools to make my games good, to me it's all about basically if I like someone, I believe that either through having them play in my sessions or by me kind of sitting down with them and talking with them about what we're looking for, how I like to play games, and what they like to do and how they like to play games, I'm fairly confident that as long as you're a nice person, as long as you're a courteous person, as long as you're somebody who acts well in a group and you know, nice company, I'm fairly sure that role playing together with you would be a lot of fun. Where that's the most essential tool for me. Everything else, pretty much beside that, is kind of sugar coating. It's kind of like it's additives. It's nice things like the dice, the character sheets, the gaming books, and all that. Those are all very nice tools, and I like using them and I like utilizing them, but they're not essential. Uh, the attitudes, it's all about attitude, really. Attitude, the right attitude, and everything that makes someone socially good makes them have the potential to be good in role playing. I think that's all it's about. It's about foundation. The books, the dice, the character sheets, and the pencils and erasers and all that, and dice applications and miniatures and maps and all that. Those are all nice. They're not the core foundation of what makes it work. What makes it work is here. See you tomorrow. Oh, so good.